Hi everyone. Ask me what I've been doing today. Not a fucking thing, mate. I haven't been doing I haven't been doing anything today. Not a damn thing. Maybe washing a couple of plates, but I ain't done shit. And I'm not sorry either because I'm not gonna have many days where I'm just gonna be able to just do nothing. So I'm enjoying it while it lasts. Now, I came online today to talk about a realization I had. Um whilst I was washing my plates and stuff, because I usually have those things while I'm cleaning. Um, I was challenging myself in my own mind as to, why I was putting everyone like, the Black community in Brighton and this community in Woodingdean. I was challenging myself, like basically internalizing all the criticisms and arguing with that internalization. And I was saying, why are you doing this to people? And I'm thinking, I'm really having to think about what I am actually doing. I am a targeted individual, yes. I'm exposing trafficking, torture, and slow kill. Murder, essentially, is what I'm calling out here. And I'm calling this out because as a targeted individual, you're marked. And what that means is that anybody that you come into contact with, even if you're isolated, anybody that you come into contact with is immediately marked, meaning they have three options. Either, depending on what their criminal background is like, either they can get seriously hurt or be killed right off the rip. They can be a target like me. That's if they don't have any criminals or any previous criminal record or any previous. Or they can be a perp and get screwed over further on down the line by the same people who hired them. So those are their options. The second that somebody comes into contact with me, whether they like me or not, those are the options that they're left with. Be screwed over now or be screwed over later. Everything that I do is conscious of that fact. And it's also conscious of the fact that racism, sexism, queerphobia, classism, and xenophobia are the entire reasons why gang stalking exists to begin with, why mass behavioral control exists to begin with. So knowing that, I really wouldn't put anybody in that position or expose those choices deliberately unless I felt like I had no other option. Because I'm on my own here. I'm on my own dealing with this. And the only way for me to stop it, the only way, the part that I play in stopping these atrocities and in thus sparing the rest of the world is to actually call it out. And the second that these perps start to show their arse, reveal their behavior. I have kept quiet when it comes to the Black community in Brighton because, again, racism is one of the foremost reasons why gang stalking is even a thing, and yet I've got Black people joining it. I am not going to call them out unless I have no other choice. I've got mentally ill people who are targeting me. Gang stalking was designed to target mentally ill people, especially right off the rip. Disabled people are always the first to be targeted, along with queer people. And yet I've got disabled people targeting me. I have to expose them because I have no other choice but to do it. And the truth of the matter is that even though being a target is vulnerable, if people are targeted en masse, that means they have community and that means they have a chance. When they make the choice to buy themselves time by becoming perps, all it really does is diminish how much time they can afford to buy to fortify themselves in their positions, which is the whole point of gang stalking to begin with. That goes for all marginalized people. And that goes for white poor people too. It affects their ability to marginalize unless, of course, they're white supremacists. No, it not marginalize. It affects their ability to mobilize unless they're white supremacists. They can't. Oh, thank you. Well, they can't form any groups. You know, the white poor can't form any meaningful groups. Peace groups are infiltrated. The black community is infiltrated. The queer community is infiltrated. The brown community are infiltrated. And even then, the brown folk are desperately trying to climb the ladder of white supremacy anyway, by and large. So there's all that. And gang stalking is at the center of it all. You know, and I'm dealing with people who think that in their marginalized status, they're actually buying themselves and their community time by siding with the gang stalkers when actually they're doing the opposite. They're doing the opposite because of the illusion of safety. And that illusion of safety comes in the form of material goods. So me being on my own and me also being vulnerable, me being vulnerable than the perps in theory, the only way for me to call out these atrocities and thus protect God knows how many other communities out there, the only way for me to do that is to actually expose the gang stalking, whoever is doing it. That's the only way I can actually protect people. I'm not about to sit here and fucking call anybody out just for the sake of doing it, knowing that every single perp I've ever run into has been caught in between a rock and a hard place. And a lot of people are going to point out that I've literally laughed at my perps. This is true. That I have called out children online. This is true. That I have cussed children out. This is true. All of these things are true. And largely, there are a few reasons why I've done that. The first reason is because when it comes to anybody harassing me of any age, now this is not a good thing. It's not a good thing, but I'm pointing it out. When it comes to anybody of any age harassing me relentlessly, I can be quite cruel. And, you know, not just cruel in a way where like I'm cruel and I match them on their level. No, like whatever their strengths are, I do the opposite. Like I'm a cruel person. I make sure that one way or another, they can't come up against me in any way. I make sure of that. And it doesn't matter whether they're a child or an adult. And, you know, if they go low, I'm going to go to hell. And if they're going to go low for 4 years, I'm going to go to hell for the rest of their lives or for the rest of my life. Because at the end of the day, what are you harassing me for? What are you doing this for? Told you to leave me alone and you're not doing it. Why are you not doing what you're supposed to be doing? You're supposed to be leaving me alone. So there's a cruelty in me that I'm not proud of, but I'm not ashamed of either, considering the context of what we're talking about here. I'm not proud of it, but I'm not ashamed of it. There is cruelty in my nature. And the reason why I've been laughing when it comes to the perps is because, you know, just like the gang stalkers and the perps who come into this, who see whatever reaction they can get out of you for the purpose of enjoying themselves, after like nearly 2 decades of knowing about this gang stalking shit, like after nearly 2 decades of knowing it, I've become so used to like gathering evidence or making reports or roasting perps. I've gotten so used to doing it, it's actually become fun for me. And the truth of the matter is, it's not fun because it's a fun thing to do. Like talking shit about people is not fun. Hatred ages and corrodes you. It's not fun. You know, fucking gathering evidence on people and reliving the stupid, sinister things that people say and do to you, that's not fun in and of itself. Gathering evidence on people, That's not fun. Talking about targeted individuals and all that type of stuff and going toe to toe in somebody trying to engage in psychological warfare with you, that's not fun. It's not fun. But then you start crossing the threshold of, wow, this feels horrible. I'm hurting just by reliving everything. It stops becoming painful at some point and it starts becoming enjoyable. It starts becoming enjoyable watching the people who are trafficking you squirm. It starts becoming enjoyable watching the people who are torturing you and murdering you squirm. It becomes enjoyable watching their desperation make them look dumb. It becomes enjoyable watching how desperate they are for a reaction from you, just so they can get paid or just so they can get an ego boost. It becomes fun to watch them torture themselves because of their cruelty addiction. And because of the fact that either you're denying them that addiction or you're turning that addiction into something even more painful for them. At a certain point, you get used to it and it starts becoming fun for you. That's the truth. It's the same with the perps. It's just, when the perps get into this, either it's fun for them right off the rip because they have personality disorders, or it starts becoming fun because they get used to doing that to you. They get used to doing that shit. So really, everything that I'm going through right now is basically a mirror of what the perps are doing. Whilst they're out here trying to like imitate you and find out what you're doing, the whole time you're getting a deeper insight into them than they will ever get into you, because all they're doing is looking at the surface level of what you do. It becomes fun. It becomes fun. I'm not going to lie to you. But again, it's not because these things are fun things to do. They're not fun things to do for anybody with an ounce of conscience. It's just that it becomes that way because you get used to it. You get in the swing of things. You start getting good at it. Becomes fun. So that's one of the reasons why, even though I know the gravity of the situation, even though I understand the gravity of the situation, first of all, the dark humor helps you cope. Second of all, like the more you fight against the gang stalkers, that you know, the more you get to know their weaknesses, and the more fun it becomes for you. And it gets even more fun when you realize you have less resources, infinitely less resources, and infinitely less manpower than your enemies do, and yet they're afraid of you. Do you understand what I mean? It becomes fun, but again, it's not that my goal is not for them to be afraid of me. Their fear is doing nothing but making them even more desperate and dig their heels in even more, you know, to not only betray themselves but betray their community. So like all they can see is upsetting me now. All they can see is their hatred of me. They can't see the damage they're doing to their communities. They can't see the classism that they're contributing to. They can't see the fact that they've contributed to elders being killed off, to terminally ill people being killed off, to fucking like people being killed off, not just because of their race, but also because of their gender, because of their fucking sexuality, because of their fucking class. The vulnerable are being killed off. And gang stalking is contributing to that. But because they're in fear and because they're desperate, all they can see now is she going to be upset? Is she going to rant online? What is her reaction? Because that is all they have left. And even then, that's failing them. Do you understand what I mean? So, yeah, I rambled, but the point is that, you know, I'm not gonna lie to you. I have evil in me. I'm not gonna be able to fucking, you know, run rings around my gang stalkers without that shit. It's not like I can do it without evil in my soul. I can't do it without evil in my soul. Like, there are other TIs who are really good people who can, who can bypass their gang stalking without cruelty and without hurting other people. There are other people who can do that. I'm a fucking heel. I'm a fucking heel. That's what people wanted me to be, so that's what I am. I'm a fucking heel. It's just that I'm a heel, basically using my heel status to get people out of trafficking. Even when we're not talking about gang stalking, apparently there's only 5 to 10% trafficking victims that make it out alive. That's fucking terrifying. That's terrifying. And on top of that, it's women and children that are facilitating the trafficking. It's mostly women and children. The men make up the leadership networks, but it's women and children doing it. Even somebody like me, a single woman, even I know that's being done. Families and women with a lot of friends are deliberately used as juxtaposition with me as a single woman with hardly any friends around her. Because immediately that's pitting up their so-called likability and vulnerability up against me who's by herself. Immediately a hero and a villain structure is being set up. I'm supposed to be the villain of the piece. I'm already othered because I'm not a mother, because I'm not because I'm single. I'm not a mother yet. I'm not a mother, right? So immediately I'm being juxtaposed as the villain or the heel of the situation just by my differences in close proximity to the perps. And even though my trafficking is like reverse trafficking, it's making sure nobody can get to me. When women and children are used for other types of trafficking to entice people into being kidnapped and displaced and all the rest of it, it amounts to the same thing. It's weaponized vulnerability, with men making up the leadership networks. And bear in mind, women and children are marginalized people, but they're used because they're marginalized. So they're marginalized. Their marginalization is weaponized to facilitate trafficking. And I'm the heel. I'm the villain of the piece that's got to call that shit out. And through me helping myself and through me being a heel and through me exposing people, I'm over here trying to save as many lives as I fucking can. Through me going online and ranting and talking shit and burning bridges in my social networks, there is a plan to everything. There is a plan to the whole fucking thing. And that plan is to save as many people from trafficking as a whole as possible. And if I have to be a heel to do that shit, I have no problem with that. If I have to use my cruelty and my malice to make sure that innocent people don't continue to be harmed like this, I'm gonna fucking do it. And it's as simple as that. It means that from here on out, there are going to be more people that are going to be exposed for their role in gang stalking, regardless of the community that they come from. It means if anything serious happens, I'm going to start upping the stakes. I'm going to hold myself to this. I'm filming myself on live. I'm going to hold myself to this. I'm going to get those fucking cameras. For the outside and the inside, I'm going to get them fucking cameras. Because if they want conclusive proof that somebody's entering my property and somebody's being there when they're not supposed to be there, I can work that out. But my thing is this: they might hack the cameras. It's not like those things can't be hacked. But yeah, Yeah, I'm gonna make sure this shit happens. I'm gonna make this shit happen. And if I have to be everybody's heel to get it done, I'm gonna fucking get it done. And people out here pretending to be virtuous, fucking throwing everybody under the bus to buy themselves some time. Me and them are not the same. Me and them are not the same, baby. We ain't the fucking same. I didn't want to be a heel to people. I wanted to be liked. I didn't want to be a heel. All the desperation that I acted with in the past. I just wanted to be liked so badly. I thought if I was liked, then I'd get some peace, but it doesn't work like that. So heel it is, you know. But what else was I gonna talk about? Oh yeah, yeah. Speaking of heels, I was lying in my bed this morning. I think it was about like 9:15 a.m. And I was awake anyway. So like I was awake, but I was like, when you wake up and you're basically zombified, right? So I was basically awake, zombified state, could hear everything clearly, but I was just like, yeah. So this dumb little girl walks past, like from next door. This dumb little girl, when she goes into her flat, she basically says, "Do you know why you don't care that you're lying? It's because you're black." I'm like, you sound dense as hell. Like this is exactly what I'm saying. Cruelty. Cruelty. But it's the truth. Sound fucking dumb as hell walking past the door saying, "Oh, you don't care whether you're lying because you're black." So first of all, hold on a minute, hold on. So basically, there are a few things we've got to talk about here. First of all, the little girl is doing something that the gang stalkers do a lot. So their favorite thing to call me, like they did it, I noticed it like when I came home from London, like after seeing my family, there was this emphasis on calling me dumb, right? And the gang stalkers know I'm not dumb. So what they have to do is they've called me dumb first, just to throw that lie in there. And then what they've done is they've created situational manipulation, which is like they manipulate situations to make it look like I'm not really following all that well. So they might like gaslight me about things. They might miss out details, make out like I'm not really listening. They might cause ear damage. They've been doing that, causing ear damage so I can't hear very well. They may fire weapons on my head to make sure my cognitive abilities are affected and my memory is affected. So they'll call you dumb, and then they'll manipulate situations and use electronic torture to mimic the effects of somebody being stupid. Now, people normally associate memory lapses and like impaired cognitive function with stupidity. So that's what they do. They lie. If they can't find anything on you that they can actually use, then what they'll do is they'll actually lie, and then they will create situations that back up that lie. Do you understand? So it's like they'll take a lie and they'll turn it into the truth. Apparently that's a Masonic thing. I don't know though. From what I've read, I don't know about that. But apparently turning a lie into the truth is a Masonic thing, right? So that's what this little girl is trying to do. She's trying to say that I'm lying. So the next thing that she's going to do is she's going to try to create situations, or the rest of the family are trying to create situations where it seems like I'm lying. Do you understand? Situational manipulation is what I like to call it. So that's the first thing that the little girl was trying to do. She was trying to set up a situation where she, oh, she's a liar. That's why she look. She comes up with all kinds of bargaining in her head. Like she's not reacting because she's crazy. She's not reacting because she's lying. She's not reacting because all kinds of bargaining. They do all kinds of bargaining in their heads, the perps do. The perps do all kinds of bargaining when they don't get the reaction that they want. Or what they'll do is they'll torture you more, and then they'll bargain with themselves that if I give them the reaction they want, then they'll stop, as if they have any choice, right? So that's what she was trying to do. She was trying to rewrite my reality with this stupid bullshit that she was spouting. Okay. And then with the black thing, she learned from 2021 when the mother was calling up with all kinds of N words and you know, and C words and black C words, right? She knew from what the mother said and what her stupid aunt said that racial slurs hit, right? That's what this little girl has been relying on for the last 4 years. She's been relying on racial slurs in order to get a reaction. First of all, because she learned that from her aunt and from her mother. Second, because she said it when she first moved in here. She said that the mother hated black people and the aunt hated black people, right? So she said, oh, you hate black people? That's the first thing she said when she came here. And when the mother saw me, the first day she saw me, 2021, she said, I can't live with immigrants. So you immediately see a black person and you assume that this person's an immigrant rather than a second generation Brit, or even a first generation Brit, which a lot of black people are, right? Immigrant, straight away. So the child learned from that racism is the go-to if she really wants to make an impact, if she really wants to make people upset. So her being a kid, her being stupid, her being most likely a childhood sociopath, because children can have sociopathy. There is such a thing as childhood sociopathy. I only just found that out like a couple of years ago. So because of all these things, on top of, you know, just being a typical kid who needs to say something shocking, that's where the you know, because you're black thing came from. Because she kept calling me a big black woman up until now. And I'm just like, yo, I don't care. It went from me being outraged at them, you know, using racial slurs, and now it's just boring, weird, and cringe. So yeah, now it's just boring, weird, and cringe. But this child uses that because that's what children do. And the youngest child, this is what I've always observed in gang stalking. The youngest child is usually the one that is the more authentic. They have the least self-control, and they are most likely to buy into all the lies that the elders tell about themselves. What I mean by that is that if this family is representing themselves as racist just because they think it's normal and not necessarily because they hate black people or hate brown people, that's what this strikes me as. This strikes me as a family that thinks racism is a sort of like Jack the Lad type of thing rather than a serious fucking problem. That's what this family strikes me as, because they've got black people, you know, that they've got family members who date black people, right? So my thing is this: they think they're being Jack the Lads. They think they're being cute by being racist. But the little girl doesn't see that. She sees that the racism is genuine. She thinks the racism is genuine. She thinks the racism is what's supposed to happen in that family. So she's got like all of this going on in her head. Plus, as a kid, you know, I've been a kid before. I know what being a kid is like. You want to say the dumbest, most reckless shit that you can come up with just to get a reaction and just to be, for everybody to be like, oh, because when you're a child, attention is your currency. So that's why the because you're black thing came up. It was just a shallow line used by a kid who doesn't know any better and who wanted attention. And that wasn't necessarily the reason why it didn't emotionally hit me like the racial slurs have. It like that's not the reason why it didn't hit me. The reason it didn't hit me was because the slurs have been used before. And there comes a certain time where the big black people that you hate so much, they were the ones standing between you and self-annihilation, and you chose self-annihilation. You have made it very clear that you will literally burn your own house down just to make sure I don't have a home to live in, regardless of whether or not the people who truly lied to you and stole from you end up protecting you. You don't care about that. You just care about your hatred. So that's the reason why I'm not really that angry or that upset about it. It's because I know that hating me is more important to them than loving themselves or taking care of themselves at this point. It's not, it's not difficult to see. And again, they're very weird, very cringe, very boring. Actually, no, not boring, because I did get a good giggle out of their tactics. I can't lie. I got a good giggle out of their tactics, right? But like, no, they're very weird and very cringe, and absolutely all of these people, apart from the grandfather, have the mindset of literal children. They have the mindset of literal children, except for like the aunt who has the mindset of a teenager. But absolutely all of them, apart from the granddad, have the mindset of fucking children. And let's be absolutely clear. The only reason why the grandfather came after me is because he was protecting his family as a man, like he's supposed to. But he knows, he understands, right? He understands how fucking childish this whole thing is. So does the son, so does the boy. You understand? But it's like, but literally everyone in that family has the mindset of a child. All of them have the mindset of a child, apart from the aunt who has the mindset of a teenager. Mindset of a 14-year-old. Not a bright one either. But yeah, it is very weird and very cringe. And, again, I understand that they're not just doing that of their own volition. I understand that as gang stalking, it's basically a blood sport where people see how much they can upset you. If they upset you, they win. If they upset you, they get paid. I know, I get it. But it is still very boring, very weird, and very cringe. Okay, so yeah, so the gang stalkers are dealing with a woman who who ultimately has been involved in this for too fucking long to be rattled like that. And they're trying to find ways to rattle me. I know they're trying to find ways to rattle me, but the truth of the matter is that they lost this war the second my mother was out of the picture. That's when they lost the whole thing. When I wasn't ashamed to cry anymore, when I wasn't thinking about whether or not my anger made them feel good, when all that stopped, when I was willing to admit my problems with binge eating, my problems with my weight, even though I don't really mind my weight all that much. Everybody else has a problem with it more than I do. When I was willing to admit, like my vulnerabilities, when I was willing to be vulnerable, like regardless of whether or not the perps had anything to do with it, because my mum's death had just unlocked all that. That's when the power dynamic started to shift. The day they killed my mother. Not the neighbors didn't do that, but like the day gang stalking killed my mother, that's when everything changed. And now there's no way back. Now there's no way back. The same control that the gang stalkers want, they can literally put me in any situation they want to put me in. They're not going to get that power back. They're not getting it back. They literally killed it. Now I'm about to say something controversial, something that my older brother is going to hate me for, something my younger brother is going to hate me for, and I love him to death. I love my younger brother and my older brother to death. And it's something that my younger sister, who I love very much and who I love to death also, is going to hate me for. But my mother was a gang stalker. My mother was tasked with asking brutal questions, disgusting questions. She was tasked with um, pointing out physical attributes of mine to make me feel self-conscious at Gangstalking's behest, okay? I had a dream about my mom being recruited. And this was years back. This was like, and we're talking about, you know, in more than a decade. It's almost 2 decades ago. I had this dream that I was at my grandmother's house and I went outside and there was this demon. You know how you got neon colors in Canva, right? Or you got neon colors in like the TikTok options where you know, you look at the titles and stuff, it's got the neon option. It was like that, only he was red, right? He was like a neon red, like red with a neon glow, right? And he had red eyes. The red eyes were not glowing. And he wore a black robe. And he said to me, if you don't join us, we're going to go after your mother if you don't join us. Now, in my dream, I told them about themselves. I called them all kinds of cunts and bitches. I said, I'm not joining you. Go fuck yourself. I'm not joining you. This was in the dream, right? I told my mum what the dream was when she was still alive and able to function. They said to me, if I don't join you, if I don't join them, then they're going to come after you next. And I tried to warn her, but they actually did get her. In spite of my best efforts to warn her that they would come after her next, if they didn't, they would come after her next. If they couldn't get to me, then they would go through my mum. That wasn't even the first time that was said. That dream wasn't even the first time it was said. That shit was said when I was a teenager, when I was about 18 or 19 years old. If they can't get to you, they will get to you through your mum. They must have been doing shit to me back then that wasn't working, so they must have gone through my mother. And I'm thinking it's the electronic weaponry. If we can't get to you, we will get to you through your mum. That dream wasn't even the first time I'd heard it. But anyway, I told my mum, I said, look, I had this dream where they said to me, if we cannot get through to you, we will go through your mother. Right? So they're letting me know that it wasn't my mother that was a primary target. I was a primary target. That was in the dream anyway. So I told my mother this. Next thing I know, she is, she's not the only one doing this, by the way. There are other members of my family that are gang stalkers. I'm not naming them yet. Next thing I know, you know, we're talking, she's dropping all kinds of street theater on me, like doing all of this type of shit because she was pressured into it. She was blackmailed into it. But even after she did everything that the gang stalkers told her to do, they still had her assaulted by police. They still electronically tortured her when the police were found guilty of hurting her. They still caused her multiple strokes. They still had her in conditions where there was really bad medical negligence in the hospital, and they still let her die when her lungs were filling up with fluid. So after all of that, where they went to extreme lengths to, you know, to make her betray her own child, they still killed my mother. They still killed her. Even after everything that she did to betray me, they still killed her. This is exactly what I'm talking about when I say that when you're a gang stalker, you are not safe. You know, they can tell you all kinds of shit. We'll keep your children protected. We'll make sure your children want for nothing. This, that, and the third. They will still kill you, and they will still slow kill your children. But hear the joke now. My mother still loved me. When I was being sectioned, She fought for me to be released. When I was talking to her about this gang stalking stuff, she didn't say it was false. She didn't say it wasn't real. She didn't even deny her own part in it like that. She was the only person who was willing to be honest about what the fuck was going on. Even in the midst of betraying me, she was still admitting what was going on. She was still telling the truth. That's more than anybody else has done. She was still willing to be honest. You know what? I don't think it was part of the gang stalking either. I don't think that was part of the gang stalking. I think that even when she was put under pressure to betray me, she still had my fucking back. And even when she did everything that she was told to do, they still killed her. That's when they lost. Because now mum's dead. They can't fucking weaponize her against me anymore. They can't get to me through her. She's dead. They killed her. So now what happens? The power dynamic shifts. Suddenly everybody in my family knows what's been happening. Suddenly every one of my so-called friends knows what's been happening. Suddenly Black Brighton are on edge and trying to isolate me and get ahead of the story already. Suddenly they're on edge. Suddenly the people around here are fucking terrified because now they know their gang stalker status is not going to protect them. It didn't protect my mother. It didn't protect other members of my family. It didn't even protect my enemies. And now one of my enemies has got a child. That child has been tortured. I guarantee that. Just like these people up here have been tortured. I hear that poor little baby, like upstairs there, that poor little smoochy dog up there, barking incessantly. And it's not just because that baby is lonely. It's because she can hear the frequencies. Sorry. She can hear them. She can hear them. Every single one of these perps are being tortured right alongside with me. And they were lied to that they weren't. Again, how do I know? Mum's dead. Now, me and my mother have a complex relationship. We still do. She's dead, but she's not like, she's still around somewhere. She's not dead. So her body's not here, but she's still around some places. And I know she wouldn't be happy with me telling everybody about that because she, I don't think it's out of her being a private person. I think that when she was going through pain and when she was going through abuse, either she wasn't believed or people did nothing. So I think that's why she kept quiet. And that's why she internalized it and, in some ways became cruel herself sometimes. But, my mum's not fully out of the picture. And I don't think she will be as long as I'm alive. Right? So, yeah. But I still love my mother. That's not going to change. The fact that I grieved over her as much as I did, and I still grieve over her as much as I do, it means that I still love her. It doesn't matter what she did. That's not going to change. And the fact that in spite of her being a gang stalker, she was still willing to speak up for me. She was still willing to validate my experiences, however much it hurt her to do so. It means that on some level, she loved me as well. I'd be a fool not to acknowledge that. But the truth of the matter is, when the death freed her, because she was freed, when the death freed her, when the murder freed her and enhanced her power, that's when the power shift started. The day she was killed. Now there's no way back. Now it doesn't matter how upset I get, how vulnerable I get. You might get paid, but it's not going to help you. Cost of living is going up. Racism is on the rise. Xenophobia is on the rise. People are more divided. All of that is a result of gang stalking. So whatever chump change you're getting out of hurting or upsetting me, it's not going to help you. And that, you know, the one person that could have maintained control over my situation and made me act out of sorts is gone. And I know the way gang stalking works, they're not going to stop with her. They haven't stopped with her. So that's one of the reasons why I find like this whole enterprise weird and fucking cringe. Because it is weird and cringe. It's also sad. You wrote your own fucking death warrant with nothing to show for it except, is the big black woman upset? It's pathetic. You're going to die. Like, they're coming to fucking kill you. I've already seen what these people look like. I've already seen how raggedy these people look now. Every single perp that I see, they look raggedy as fuck. If you think I look raggedy, you want to see my perps. You want to see the stress they're under because of everything that they've put themselves through. It doesn't matter whether the big black woman is upset or not. It's because that big black woman is upset that you're going to fucking die. That you're going to be in a position where, you know, you're going to start something you're not going to be able to finish. It's because you upset the big black woman, not in spite of it. And at this point, that's all you have to hold on to. I've given up my family members. I've given up my community. I've handed over most of the white poor people in this country. I've put most of my white poor counterparts in the incinerator because I needed to make that big black woman upset. That's your fault. That's your fault. So that's another reason why I don't react yet. Like, you're putting your whole communities in the incinerator just to upset like black people and brown people and libtards. Is it even worth getting upset at that point? Just like with, you know, with certain people in Black Brighton trying to ostracize me and trying to like ostracize me like I give a fuck. Racism is the whole reason gang stalking was invented in the first place. Why should I give a shit? You're hurting yourselves, not me. I'm a heel, but that heel is kayfabe. It's not real. You're hurting yourselves. I'm not hurting myself. I'm speaking the truth. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. You're the one who ain't doing what you're supposed to be doing. Anyway, what else can I say? What else? You know what? Like, my intuition does this thing where, you know, you can't go yet. You got to talk more. What about though? My intuition's slow as well. It's fucking pokey. Like, what? Ah, what am I supposed to talk about? God damn it. Huh. I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about that, but like, I made a correlation between like, um, you know, the obsession with prettiness and social isolation, unless that's not what I'm supposed to talk about. Yeah, so I noticed this like dichotomy between isolation and prettiness, right? And I noticed that the more lonely someone is the more they want what they consume to be pretty. Like, the more isolated emotionally or physically someone is, the more they want prettiness in their lives, right? And that prettiness can look different to different people. But that's what I notice personally. I notice that the more physically and or emotionally isolated somebody is, the more aesthetic becomes important, and the more defining yourself by aesthetics become important, right? So I was thinking of the male loneliness epidemic, and it occurred to me that, you know, there's a correlation, a direct correlation between these men being isolated and them increasingly needing pretty things or pretty people that validate them or coddle them. And I'm thinking back also to young ladies that are sheltered and the type of like partners that they go for. And with me in particular, even though I'm bisexual, I'm hetero-romantic. So as much as I really, really loved women, and truth be told, I'm actually like emotionally and sexually more attracted to women than men. I'm hetero-romantic, which means that when it comes to long-term relationships, I didn't just want a boy or a man. I obsessed over pretty men. And the reason why I did that is because I was physically and emotionally isolated. And, you know, as as a natural animal, like human beings are, animals in a bid to survive will gravitate towards beauty, because beauty can kind of give somebody the feeling of being with someone, if that makes sense. Like if they can't actually socialize with people that they can really have a real emotional connection with, then they will like idealize beauty instead and turn that into an avatar for whatever it is that they need. So like I used to be really obsessed with pretty people, and I used to imagine them coddling me, not necessarily in the traditional sense that they would agree with everything that I say, but that they would mirror my abusive environment so that I wouldn't feel out of place. So that is one of the reasons why I liked pretty bad boys. It wasn't because, um, I liked abuse or I wanted to be abused. It was simply because um, I was looking for a beautiful avatar that coddled me because I was physically isolated, because I was in my house a lot. I was depressed and I didn't want to talk to anybody, due to bullying, which brings me to emotional isolation. I was bullied a lot, although, again, I have cruelty in me. I didn't do myself favors in the face of being bullied. So I was emotionally isolated by bullying and being a bully. And I was also physically isolated because the whole experiences of those things made me retreat in my house. So for me, I was always idolizing pretty men who, who were at the top of the food chain in terms of white patriarchal supremacy. And if they were rich too, hell yeah. So like I used to obsess over guys like that, and especially if they didn't like me or they were disinterested or they were controlling, I used to gravitate towards that because, again, that's what I was used to from the men in my life. So it was like I was isolated enough to look for something that was at the top of the social order, but something that would mimic my immediate environment, so that not only could I have the status, I could have the familial comfort that came with it. So it was from those findings that I thought to myself, maybe there's a direct correlation between racism, sexism, xenophobia, all of which are emotionally isolating, and fat phobia, all of it. Like maybe there's a connection between bigotry, which is emotionally isolating, and like being desocialized, being in your home a lot, being on technology a lot, which is also like physical isolation. Maybe there's a connection between that and needing to see pretty things all the time, or at least pretty things as represented by white supremacy. I'm thinking maybe there's a connection between the two. And the more I'm actually thinking about how the world actually works, the more I'm realizing, yeah, actually that checks out, because it's like the more the more isolated you are, the more you crave connection, and the more you crave connection is the more you crave beauty and coddling to replace that connection, because as human beings, we're programmed to desire to be in a world that is beautiful, interactive, and coddles us. And the ultimate goal of that is to have a world that we can learn from. Only the more generations go on is the more the learning is scrapped, and the more emphasis there is on pleasure and beauty. So we're supposed to desire these things anyway. We're supposed to want pleasure and beauty so that we can learn from it, you know, because beauty and pleasure objectively make people happy. Like let's not stand on ceremony here. Let's not beat about the bush about that. Like, beauty and pleasure makes people happy. And the happier you are, the more likely you are to learn, no? Right. So that's why these things are important. But because we are taught that beauty, you know, because we live in a rarity and a scarcity economy, and because we live in an economy of codependency, meaning the only way you can be independent is to have people reliant on you. Because we live in that type of world, what we have is beauty and coddling and convenience weaponized against the masses, to sort of turn on each other and to sort of replace genuine connection with beauty and with coddling. And it sounds really messy. I'm trying to go somewhere with this because it's connected to gang stalking as well. It's connected to bigotry. It's connected to, you know, but it basically boils down to something that I've said a million times already. Isolation equals preoccupation with prettiness and richness. And for those who are about to say to me, well, what about pretty people? Like, you know, pretty people don't act like that. Well, I'm not being funny, but I see a lot of videos online of like relatively good looking people talking about how it's important to like cut yourself off from the rest of the world and only hang around other pretty people who want to get somewhere with their lives. That's emotional isolation and physical isolation, which leads to more of the same thing, desiring to be around beauty and pleasure more than learning. Because when you're in among a diverse group of people, you learn things. When you're around people of different visuals, different, you know, like, if as long as they're not offensive, right? Like, when you're around people of different ethnicities, different cultures, different standards of beauty, different this, different that, when you're around different types of people, that's where the learning comes in. When you're around diversity, that's where the learning comes in. But if you are not surrounding yourself with diversity and you're only surrounding yourself with things that appear to be aspirational to you, what are you really learning? If you need evidence of that, look to fandoms of the X-Men, look to fandoms of the Avengers, look to fandoms of Marvel, look to fandoms of Star Wars. All of these properties were supposed to teach people about human rights and about treating people fairly through the medium of something that makes them feel good. But instead, they just took the pleasure and beauty aspects of it, especially the more isolated fans. They just took the beauty and pleasure aspects of it and ran with that, not realizing that those works are woke as fuck. This is exactly what I'm talking about when I say physical and social isolation, either through not really interacting with people, or through personality disorders, or through, you know, or through being bullied, or through, you know, through emotional isolation of bigotry. All of these things contribute to a preoccupation with aesthetic, a preoccupation with how things feel and whether or not they feel good over what is actually being taught. And that's as a direct result of prioritizing beauty and pleasure over learning, when the two are supposed to go hand in hand. You're supposed to be surrounded by diversity and beauty. You're not supposed to be surrounded by either one or the other. Do you understand what I mean? And as a targeted individual, you're in the position where you're both emotionally and physically isolated. And that isolation is used against you. You've got people in the world who are compartmentalizing themselves according to who they talk to, which again is more isolation. They compartmentalize themselves according to who they talk to. And then they come home, they can't even be their real selves there. So that's more compartmentalization. They're lying to themselves. So that's physical and emotional isolation. And then they see somebody like you who is genuine, who doesn't do that shit. So they want to emotionally and, you know, and physically isolate you to the point where you start to want the same things that they do. Pleasure and coddling. And they weaponize that. They weaponize pleasure and coddling to make you into something that you're actually not. The whole point of like torturing you with electronic weapons is to make you uglier. The whole point of torturing you with psychological warfare is to make you less pleasurable to be around. So you don't take care of yourself. You don't smell good. You don't look good. You don't this good. You don't that good. All of that, like teeth missing, torture. All of that. So that people who exist in a currency of beauty and convenience and scarcity don't take your pain seriously. Do you understand what I mean? And then as a targeted individual, what's supposed to happen is that you're supposed to, you know, you're supposed to fall in line with that same codependency mindset, with that same beauty and convenience mindset. But this is what it means to be a TI. What it means to be a TI is, first of all, you have to let the codependency go. And quiet as it's kept, hyper independence is a form of codependency. Because that's the codependency thing will have you either in two camps, either being completely dependent or being hyper independent. So as a TI, those are the lanes that you are being forced into through this torture. Isolation. It feeds into the isolation, which feeds into the, you know, into the other stuff, right? So that's another form of isolation, trying to force you into a corner of either being, you know, completely dependent or hyper independent. Being interdependent and utilizing the perps around you to get what you want, that's interdependence. So you're not like saying, oh, I want to be by myself, fuck all you guys. But also you're not saying, I need you so much, like this, that, and the third. You're not doing that. Instead, you're walking the middle ground. You're able to infiltrate. It's like you use your targeted status to infiltrate rather than the other way around, right? So in being interdependent, in refusing to be codependent, you break part of that programming. And I've noticed it in my own life as well, because I've chosen to be interdependent using my TI status, not in spite of my TI status. I'm using my TI status to be interdependent because I know the perps need me to be among people to get a reaction. So I use that to get what I want. And a lot of TIs will tell you the same thing. Don't isolate yourself. I used to think that was bullshit, but then I realized, nah, there's power in that, especially when you come to the table as a TI. And especially when you start off right with the genocide, right with the killing, right with the this, that, and the third. They'll paint you as crazy as first, but the more things unfold is the more they realize you weren't talking shit. So interdependence is crucial to breaking that isolation. And once you break that isolation, you break the overdependence on beauty and aspiration and comfort to define yourself. Then beauty becomes a tool rather than being medicine, right? So that's the first thing. That's the first way to break that. The second way to break it is to focus on the commonalities between you and other perps, right? The perps will try to isolate you purposefully by highlighting your differences. That's how people form hierarchies and isolate themselves physically and emotionally. They do so through highlighting their differences. But the truth is that human beings have way more in common than we ever do anything different. Way more in common than we have differences. So the most important thing as a TI, in order to bypass this isolation equals beauty and coddling thing, is to really remember the commonalities that you have with other people, because you have them. Like, instead of imagining yourself to be the heroes to their villains, instead imagine yourself as the same type of human beings they are. I wonder if they stub their toe. Of course they do. Everybody does that shit. Do they go to toilet? Yes. The perps use you going to the toilet as a form to humiliate you, but they go to the toilet as well. Like, they're trying to use the commonalities, the human commonalities that everybody has in order to humiliate you. Reverse that shit. Those commonalities are your humanity. Use it. Use it. That breaks the emotional isolation. Because now I'm looking at the situation, and not only do I realize that the perps are copying me deliberately because it's part of the time. Oh, hey, Lauren. Not only do I realize that the commonalities of gang stalking revolve around mimicking the target. Not only that, but in the first place, there are a lot of behaviors that mimic the target in a twisted fashion. So like the perps already, like, in my particular case, I don't know if this is the same with other TIs. There are qualities that I have that some of these gang stalkers have. Like the cruelty that I talked about before, the perps have it and I have it. That same cruelty. The tendency to start enjoying things once you get used to it. I have it, the perps have it. There are certain similarities between me and the perps that transcend race, transcend gender, transcend sexuality, even transcends the way that we're raised. So once you focus on the commonalities between yourself and the gang stalkers, it gives you the opportunity to understand your enemies more. That's the first thing it does. The second thing it does is it removes the added layer of isolation from you. That's another thing that breaks the spell. That's another thing that breaks the spell, and another thing that stops you from wanting what they have. All right? There's other stuff as well. I've got to get to it in a minute. But yeah. 1 second. Come on, fuckbook. All right. Because I wrote it all in a status. So that's another thing that breaks the spell of isolation as a targeted individual, right? Hold on. Hey, look at me. I'm looking at myself right now. Yeah, so, okay, so, yeah, so that's the second way in which, as a targeted individual, you can bypass that programming and bypass that shit. Yeah, that's the second thing. So those two things. First thing is to focus on the commonalities that you have with other human beings because you have them. The second thing is to, hold on, focus on your commonalities and also be interdependent, meaning don't be completely dependent on the gang stalkers or the system to get what you need, but also don't isolate yourself. That's the best way to be in the world and not of it. And I know what a lot of people are going to say. Well, a lot of people are already doing that. No, they're not. Again, we live in an economy of codependency. I guarantee you they're not. I guarantee you they exist in that codependency. And they keep themselves independent by keeping other people dependent on them. As a TI, you don't do that. You don't keep people independent to keep people dependent on you. Nor do you seek other independent people out to be dependent on them. Instead, you work the middle. You become interdependent so that You don't necessarily need anybody, but you're not averse to anybody either. And if anybody tries to infiltrate you, you'll know what to do. You know, the key is to be human and not human. And the truth of the matter is this: you will always have vulnerabilities. This is a torture and slow kill program. You will always have vulnerabilities. You will always have vices. You will always have things about yourself that are weaknesses. And yes, the gang stalkers will always use that against you because it's their job to do so. I'm looking at Luther Vandross's case. Right? He supposedly died of a heart attack at 54, died of, after having a massive stroke due to diabetes. I personally believe that because he had these problems with food, it became easier to cover up another kill that was engineered in other ways. That's exactly what I'm talking about. That poor man died thinking that it was his fault, when really, his vices were used against him in order to cover up what really happened to him. It will happen the same with targeted individuals. That's why it's important to not only be honest about your vices, not only be honest about your vulnerabilities, but also to make the distinction between your vices and vulnerabilities and what the gang stalkers are doing to you with their electronic weapons and their psych warfare. It's important to make those distinctions because, again, as targeted individuals, we're being murdered. Do you understand what I'm saying? We're being murdered, and we're having our vices, like mine is eating, right? Mine is eating and fiction. So those are my addictions, right? They're using these things so that when they use their electronic weapons to kill us, that there was something behind that. That's the whole point in what they're doing. That's the whole point in doing what they're doing. They're doing what they're doing so that when they eventually murder us at a young age, they can hide it behind our habits. And they can exacerbate the negative consequences of those habits to make it look like it was our fault. It's for all these reasons why breaking the scarcity mindset that keeps us isolated physically and emotionally is so important. It's not just important to our lives, it's also important to our memory. And whatever is important to our life and our memory is what will get future trafficking victims and survivors out of their situations. Hell, it might even stop people being trafficked in the first place, either by our own governments or by some scumbag around the way. So, yeah, remembering these things, remembering the nuances of life are the key to not being emotionally and physically isolated. They're the keys to not being lonely. Remembering the nuances of life is so crucial. And, that's another thing. That's another way in the way people isolate themselves. Choosing binaries. Choosing binaries is another way in which people isolate themselves rather than understanding the nuances of a situation. As a targeted individual, we're in a unique position to see the nuance in everything. That's a gift. We need to use it. Do you understand? So it's all of these things are important to kind of get a fast recap, breaking the spell. Okay, baby, I can give you that. So Lauren wants a brief recap. I was talking about how there's a connection between beauty and convenience and being emotionally and socially isolated. And that the more you have one is the more you seek the other. The more lonely and isolated you are, the more you seek beauty and convenience. And I was explaining that seeing as we live in an economy of scarcity and codependency, as targeted individuals, we have to break with that codependency. Essentially, it comes down to being interdependent rather than independent or codependent, and using your targeted individual status in order to move through your social circles. So you can burn that shit up and get the truth out there, right? The second thing is that you focus on the commonalities that you have with other human beings. Perps will try to shame you with those commonalities, but you will use those commonalities as your armor, as your weapon. Do you understand? So that they can't isolate you from humanity like that. Right? So those are the first two things that you need to do, and you need to get those ingrained in here. I am human, and I am not going to isolate myself, but I'm not going to beg for help either. Once you get those two things in a row, once you get those in your mind and in your heart, you move through the world differently. It's like you have to be, as a TI, you have to be in the world and not of it. Does that make sense, Lauren? Let me know if that makes sense. This has a delay, so I'll wait like a couple minutes. Lauren, you there? I have to wait. I have to wait a bit because yeah, this is a very slow connection, so I've got to wait a while. Okay. Have you got everything written down? No, you haven't got a pen. I'm gonna upload this on YouTube anyway, so like it doesn't matter. You can like you can always watch this on YouTube. Oh my god, my lips are dry. Yeah, you can always watch this on YouTube. Um, it doesn't matter anyway, Lauren. You can always watch this on YouTube. It's not a problem. Mm. That's better. Now I look like I belong to somebody. There we go. Got to moisturize the old more. Ah, there we go. Yeah, so I think that's it. I think I can go. I'm gonna upload this onto YouTube anyway. So that was from me. What else do I need to say? Yeah, I think that's it. I can go. Huh. Peace and blessings, everybody. I will see you in the next one. I'm going to upload this onto YouTube. It's going to be time stamped and all that. So take care, everyone, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye, my darlings. If this thing moves, I can click off. There you go.